Tonight is the night we've all been waiting for, the first presidential debate hosted by CNN, simulcast on Fox News. I've got Sean Spicer on deck with his predictions, but first, my losers of the week. So someone is going to lose the CNN presidential debate tonight, but before we get into that, we've still got some other losers on the docket. All three of my picks this week have something to do with food. So let's start with the pit of the earth, West Hollywood, California. While LA County allows for thugs and felons to get away with about anything and everything, when it comes to food edicts, West Hollywood is laying down the law. The West Hollywood City Council is tackling priority one, making sure city council meetings and city-sponsored events only serve plant-based food. Animal products, aka things with taste, will only be available upon request. This was done not only to be more compassionate, but also to ease climate change. These cultists still want you to believe that animal farts, which have been around since the dawn of time, will lead to the climate apocalypse. You know, of all the problems that plague West Hollywood, this is your city council edict? That and painting gay rainbows all over your streets? You know, there are residents of WeHo who literally eat out of the dumpster due to the homeless crisis, and their council members are up in arms about food served at meetings and events. But that's California for you. Speaking of the unaffordability of Biden's America, iconic American chain restaurant Hooters has been forced to close down at least 44 underperforming locations in 14 states due to pressure from current market conditions. Wings and breasts, nothing is sacred or safe in Biden's economy, it would seem. But this comes after last month's depressing news that Red Lobster was forced into bankruptcy. Well, this is mostly due to economic pressures and the sky-high cost of products and the strain of getting people to show up to work. In the case of Hooters, I'd say this is also due to a culture shift. Make of that what you will. My third loser of the week is a continuation of changing cultural norms. Over the last 10 years, there's been a concerted effort to convince Americans that fat is beautiful, obesity is normal, and diabetes is a social construct. Wrong. But leave it to a liberal blue state to make an even bigger, no pun intended, spectacle of it. Yes, Fat Beach Day. This event held at Rockaway Beach last weekend is apparently one of the many curated to celebrate fatness. In Chicago, they have Fat Friends Pool Party, and in LA, Bellies Out Beach Day. You know, I'm not sure these special days are really needed because every time I go to a beach, a pool, or any body of water, I see plenty of obese people. Don't you? Now look, the beach is for everybody, and no one should be shamed for their size, but to glorify it is to glorify diabetes, heart disease, and poor health. And speaking of that very concept, I am getting pretty sick of this self-proclaimed fat influencer complaining about her lack of special accommodations.
Every time I use a rideshare, I'm forced to ride without a seatbelt because there are no seatbelt extenders. It's time to make it mandatory for rideshares to provide seatbelt extenders.
Pop culture needs to stop elevating this entitlement complex. Being obese does not make you a victim of anything other than your own personal choices. It's not the world's job to accommodate your personal choices. End of story. And those are my losers of the week. Waiting in the wings to discuss likely not Fat Beach Day or Hooters, but something maybe a little bit more important like the CNN debate tonight is host of the Sean Spicer Show, Sean Spicer. All right, Sean, first I gotta get your top line thoughts, okay?
I'm gonna tie it all together. You didn't think I was gonna go there. Did you know that tonight's moderator, Jake Tapper, was the spokesman for Hooters? So there you go. I just tied that all together for you.
I did not know that one.
Yeah.
That's very interesting. I might have to cut your mic for that because you know that that's common practice now. If you talk about Jake Tapper, you get your mic cut. There's probably going to be a lot of mic cutting tonight, I would assume. Apparently, that's supposed to be pretty effective in reducing the crosstalk or maybe one candidate trying to correct the other one. But I'm wondering your top line thoughts about tonight. Do you think that it's going to be this big epic showdown, or do you think it's going to fall flat of expectations?
I think we're going to probably fall short of expectations. I don't think it's going to, I think Trump supporters will get something out of this. Biden supporters will get what they want. This is not going to move the numbers, in my opinion. I think, but I do think that CNN's going to be the big story. How much do they mute people? How much do they attack Donald Trump? How skewed are the questions and the topics? To me, this is going to be the story. CNN is going to have to find a way to use this opportunity to excite their base, right? And so they have to fact check Donald Trump. They have to bring up January 6th, talk about democracy being under attack, reproductive rights being under attack. So I think that the story tomorrow is going to be the role that CNN played in helping Joe Biden. Look, he's been, resting for 6-7 days? He's like a bear in hibernation. The bottom line is he's going to come out spry. He's probably had 15 Red Bulls by now. I don't think that that's the story that is really going to matter tomorrow. That's what the media is going to tell us, like, wow, look at how well he did. He showed up to a debate. I just don't see that many moments. They've done everything to minimize interaction tonight. So I don't see a big thing happening. That being said, Donald Trump is the showman of showmen. So he always has something up his sleeve. The question is, what is it tonight?
Do you think that he's prepared enough for tonight? Because I know that he's been out at rallies, he's been talking to people. That's kind of been somewhat of what his debate prep has seemingly been. I mean, obviously, he's had to be at rallies and doing things because he was stuck in a courtroom for how long? So I get it. But Biden's had all week with 16 people. What that's going to do, I'm not sure. If he's been in a cocoon, if he's been on an IV, I'm not sure. But he's obviously prepared for this, and he's got a lot of people around him. Do you think Donald Trump has prepared enough to be able to meet that moment?
Absolutely. I was with him in 2016 when we prepared for debates and forums. He knows. I mean, look, as I said earlier, the guy's a showman. He understands the stage and the visual aspects of this. He's going to come out with his A game tonight. That being said, everyone was, oh, what Donald Trump are we going to see? Here's the one you're going to see. He's going to come out, he'll make his points, and then if he's attacked, he'll attack back. That's it. It's the same Donald Trump we've always seen. He might pull a few punches. He might not go over the top people the way people are expecting it, but you're going to see the same Donald Trump that you've seen for 10 years. I don't know why people think somehow this is going to be a different guy, like he's been at the spa all day and he's going to come out relaxed and want to just go, no, Joe, you go. No, Joe, let me get the door for you. This is going to be the same Donald Trump that we've seen for 10 years. And I think the question is, which Joe Biden are we going to see? We're going to see the guy that's rested for 7 days long and is all ready to go. I'm not expecting that much, except for to see how much CNN tries to tilt the field in Joe Biden's favor.
I want to lean into that a little bit because you have been there for debate prep, so you're the perfect person for me to ask about this. A lot of people have been talking about Joe and what he's doing to prepare. But when you were preparing with Donald Trump and you see him not only preparing for debates, but for speeches or for big moments that you've been there for, what does he do to get ready? What's his demeanor like? What's his process like? Does he have stand-ins? How does Donald Trump prepare for something like this?
So two things. One is he's preparing all the time, right? So he'll bring something up in the midst of a conversation in the days preceding. He'll say, hey, what was that line that I used at that last rally? What did you think about this? Let me test out a line. Part of the thing about the rallies is he's testing lines. He's testing feedback. What works, what doesn't work, what works kind of well, what iteration of something or enunciation works better than another. The second is he sits around and goes back and forth with folks. So he might not be in front of a podium the way that Biden is with a stand-in playing the role, but he will sit around a table or around in an office with people around and throwing ideas at him or refining a thought saying, hey, when you brought up tax reform last time, make sure that you overemphasize how many people this affects or note that story that you told once before. It's a conversation more than a prep session.
Which is normal. It's not normal to me to take an entire week off and have to be holed up when you're the president of the United States. If there's anybody who should be prepared on a daily basis, it should be the president of the United States. That's what's so bizarre to me, is that people think that that's like a normal thing, that he has to take an entire week off. I mean, heaven forbid we have a terror attack, something happens in Israel, and the man's over there on an IV drip trying to get ready to talk for an hour and a half. I don't think there's been enough emphasis put on all of that.
I agree. That to me, Tommy, you're right. I'm so glad you brought that up. Why is it okay that the president took 5, 6, 7 days off to prepare for a debate? And I remember when we didn't do a briefing on time, we would get eviscerated. Well, oh, you didn't come out at this time. The president didn't issue that. We don't know what he's doing today. And here, 5, 6, 7 days, blank slate and nothing. I find it funny. I mean, you can tell how much they're in the tank for this guy because they give him pass after pass after pass.
Yeah, if he needs to sit around for 7 days and prepare to talk about his own policies, I don't know what that says about the man, and I don't know what that says about the policies. If you've done such a great job and you know what a great job you've done, it shouldn't take you so long to prepare for that. You should be doing it every single day. But
You would think.
you would certainly think. I asked Will Kane about this yesterday, and we kind of disagreed. So I want to get your take. Undoubtedly, they're going to ask about January 6th tonight. We know that's going to be a big emphasis. Democracy under attack, blah, blah, blah. And as much as I think it's a BS question, that it's a luxury, I guess a luxury topic that people who have the luxury of worrying about democracy care about, I do think that there are a number of people who don't like Donald Trump that are going to be waiting to see how he answers this question. And I'm curious to know what you think or how you think he should address it, answer the question that he's going to get. We know he's going to get it.
All right, this is a trick question because I don't know where you came down on this versus Will Kane, but I'll say two things. First, you're at a debate talking about an election. Democracy is alive and well. That's first. That's not how we should answer it, but it's such a BS question because you're literally engaging in the democratic process to talk about a democratic election for a free and fair election. I find the whole thing rather ridiculous and disgusting. That being said, here's how I'd answer it. If they say, Mr. President, January 6th, I'd say, you know what? You guys want to talk about an event 4 years ago? I want to talk about what's happened since the 4 years since that event. We are living under an open borders that is threatening our country, both domestically with the drugs coming in. More people are unemployed. We are less safe than we were. The world is more chaotic. So if you want to look back 4 years, that's fine. I'm going to look forward 4 years and tell you about what I'm going to do to make this country stronger and safer and more prosperous. There you go.
You're going to get a follow-up question, though. You know they're
Sure.
going to say, former President Trump, do you regret the actions you took that day? Do you regret your rhetoric that day? You know they're going to keep pressing. They're not going to let him just pivot.
Yeah.
They're going to make him say something about January 6th. And I think it goes one of two ways. And I talked about this with Will Kane yesterday. I know that he's not going to want to do this. I know it goes against every inclination he has, but I think it would be wise of Donald Trump, because this debate is going to be a lot about independence. I think it would be wise of him to just acknowledge that it was not a good day. I think he has to do that. And then you put it to bed that way. I think you say exactly what you said. You say, democracy, you're trying to keep me off the ballot. Democracy, you're trying to keep me in a courtroom. You have the DOJ coming after me. But I think that before you go into all of that and make your pivot, I think you acknowledge that it was a bad day for America. Because then I think that they have to acknowledge that he acknowledged it. And I think that as much as he doesn't want to do it, if he goes the other way and they say, oh, will you accept the results of the election this time? And he starts going into, well, if it's not a rigged election, then I think that's just bad, 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 bad. I think if the word rigged comes out of his mouth, it's a bad night for Trump. Do you disagree?
No, in fact, I think there's two issues. There's what he will say and what he should say. I agree with you. I mean, look, if you are with Donald Trump right now, if you have concerns about the 2020 election, if you're concerned about lawfare, you're with him. You are 100% with him. Those 4, 5, 6% in all these battleground states that are undecided, a lot of them, what they call the double haters, they're there. They already don't like you. They don't like Biden. And their decision is going to be made on policy. Their decision is going to be made on, God, I don't like either one. Which one will at least make my life better? Trump's got a better record than Joe Biden. And the more that he can talk about that and not relitigate the past, the better. Elections are about the future, not the past. Number one. Number two, everybody that's with you is already with you. Reinforcing why they're with you doesn't gain you everything. You need to go after the 3, 4, 5, 6% who are persuadable to some degree. Remember, Michigan in 2016, 10,000 votes. Wisconsin last cycle, 22,000 votes. Georgia, 20,000 votes. Arizona, like, this is not a huge amount of folks. We're teetering on the top of a fence post. He needs to focus on them and what matters to them. And what matters to them are policies and results that are going to change their lives. Relitigating the past and talking about being a victim and being things rigged isn't going to win them over. They've heard those cases and it hasn't worked.
I agree. I don't know if they'll get an opportunity to have any banter back and forth. I kind of doubt it. But what I would love to hear from Donald Trump in going along with that whole democracy thing and the election results and accepting the results of the election, I would love it if Donald Trump could look at Joe Biden and say, you know what, speaking of the integrity of our elections and accepting results, Joe Biden, do you believe that illegal immigrants should get the right to vote? I think he needs to ask him that, because then Joe Biden is put in a spot. Now he's on defense. And if he says no, illegal immigrants shouldn't vote, then he's going to get a lot of people pissed off that want illegals to vote. And if he says that they should be able to vote, then I think that he just made Donald Trump's case right there. Okay, so that's why you let 10 million in, because you want them voting. All right, mic drop. You can cut my mic now, just so the American people are aware. And I don't know if that's going to have the opportunity to come up tonight, but I really hope it does.
Well, I think both the topic and the tactic that you're discussing are critical. The more that Donald Trump can put Joe Biden on defense and say, I believe that we should, make the border safe. Do you agree, Joe? Here's my time. Like, the more that he can shift it to Joe Biden and make him explain some of those key issues that you're talking about, the better. So I hope that he's not only that they're allowed, but that he does it, because he needs to put Biden on defense in some of these issues. He should say to him on the issue of abortion, you and I have discussed this before, the more instead of being on defense, you say, Joe, or should abortion be outlawed in the third trimester? Should it be, what is enough? Pick a week, Joe. Just pick 1 week. Tell me when it's too much. But he needs to turn the tables on Joe Biden on immigration, on abortion, on democracy. Hey, Joe, is it okay to kick someone off the ballot? I mean, like, he needs to put him on defense, because you're right. The problem with the left right now, where they don't want to be, is between their far left progressive element, which is driving the train of the Democratic Party right now, and the former, like, more moderate Kennedy type wing that's almost non-existent now. And so the more that Trump can put him on defense and force him into the progressive corner, the better.
I agree. And, into that point, you mentioned the abortion question that's going to come up, but I think Donald Trump answers it. I think he says, no, I will not sign a national abortion ban. But I think he also says, listen, you claim to care so much about women and women's rights. Well, what about all the young women who have been slaughtered by illegal aliens? Do you care about those young women? And I think you just keep bringing that up, because to me, that's a big gap in the Democrat messaging right now, is that they're ignoring all these young women. I mean, preteens that are being raped and slaughtered.
I saw yesterday Hillary Vaughn on Fox asking Robert Nadler, and it's like, he was like, well, they commit less crimes on average. Okay, well, how many crimes is enough? Is it 10? Is it 20? How many Americans should die at the hands of people in the country illegally? By the way, one tweak on the abortion answer. Here's the thing. It's not only will I not sign. It's not going to come to his desk. There aren't 60 votes in the Senate for it, right? So it's a non-issue. And I think that that's where, instead of Trump potentially pissing off some of the pro-life folks with that answer, why doesn't he just say, look, it's not going to happen. There aren't 60 votes in the Senate. It's not going to come to the president's desk. That being said, here's what I do boom, pivot. The more that he can make them the extremists and pivot away, the better.
And Will brought that up yesterday, and I don't disagree that whole reality of the situation is not a bad thing to discuss. But I also think if we want to get majorities in the House and the Senate saying, don't worry, we're not going to get a majority, I don't know if that helps.
No. It's not that we're not going to get a majority. There's a difference. We will have a majority in the Senate. We will have one in the House. But to pass that piece of legislation, you would need 60 votes. We're not going to get a supermajority. It's not possible. Mathematically, it's not possible. We will get a majority. Trust me. We have enough seats right now in play in Democratic-held seats in the Senate. We will get it. We're not going to get to 60 because it's not mathematically possible. And I think stating reality isn't downplaying your success chances in November.
Yeah. I just think that, once again, the same thing with the January 6th thing. I think that they're going to push him. He's going to try to pivot that way, which I agree with. But they're going to say, if it did come to your desk, would you sign it? And I think he has to say no. I think he has to say that's not where the country is. You can say your personal beliefs, but I understand that that's not where the American people are. So I would not sign a national abortion ban. I will leave it to the states where it should be. I think that's the way he's got to answer on that if he's pushed, and I believe he's going to be, because I believe that every time he tries to pivot, they're going to nail him down. They're not going to do that with Joe, but they will do that with him.
Oh, 100%. Look, Jake Tapper, this is what I think is so funny about Jake, is that the media circled the wagons about, oh, he's a pro and attacks on him. It's not an attack. This is like the Judge Marchand daughter situation. It's not an attack to state a fact. His daughter, Judge Marchand, is a political fundraiser who raises money for Trump's opponents based on the verdict. Jake Tapper not only was a Hooters spokesman, but he was a spokesman for handgun control and a Democratic member of Congress who just happens to be Chelsea Clinton's mother-in-law. So those are facts. You don't have to like them. You don't have to agree with them. But when the left says without evidence, that's not true. There is evidence. You may not agree with it. The media may hate those facts. But Jake Tapper is a former Democratic staffer and activist. Those are facts. And I think we'll see it tonight, especially in the realm of abortion.
Yeah, no, I agree. Well, I hope immigration is going to be a big topic tonight. I think that similar to these economists that are coming out, I mean, they're like the 51 intelligence officials. Now it's the 16 economists say Trump is going to destroy the economy.
But why isn't that? That was a subject of the last presidential debate. Two things that came up. One, Biden said the reason he ran was because of Charlottesville. Yep. And two, he dismissed all the attacks on Hunter Biden because 51 intelligence agents had undermined those, saying they were Russian disinformation. Both of those have been proven demonstrably false. And if I were Trump, I would go down that road and say, you lied the last time on two fronts. You said that you ran because of something that's been proven false in Charlottesville that I didn't say, number one. And number two is you covered up Russian disinformation to protect your son and used people's government-issued security clearance to do so. Mm-hmm. Those are both false. Would you like to apologize now?
That's a good point. But on this 16 economist thing, and then similarly to that, he has his DHS secretary clown, who he often forgets the name of. We know it, Mayorkas. He had him
wait, it's Mayorkas? I thought it was
I'm not going to go there. Yeah, that's what it was last week. But who knows? I mean, the IV will recall some things. It's like the smelling salts or whatever it is, maybe up his sleeve, some smelling salts. But Mayorkas yesterday goes to the border. And what I find so interesting is, like, you can gaslight people a little bit, but when you have a report that says that you have hundreds of people in this country brought over by an ISIS-linked smuggling network, and you try to tell people that you are not sure if those are bad people, let's take a listen to this for those who haven't heard it.
A message to the families is, of course, our hearts are with them, given their suffering. We screen and vet individuals when we encounter them. If we learn of derogatory information subsequently, later in the process, then we take enforcement action accordingly. That reporting is incorrect. We do not have identified 400 people with potential ISIS ties. And let me again assure you that individuals who are identified to have those ties would pose a concern to us from a public safety and a security perspective, and they would be priorities for detention and removal.
I mean, yeah, it's like, well, if they slip through the cracks, which they did, then we're going to go find them. So don't worry, guys. There might be hundreds of them here. We don't know that they're bad people, by the way. We don't want to assume derogatory. We don't want to assume that there's derogatory things that they're coming to do. But, you know, if they are, then wherever they spread out across this country, like, don't worry, we'll go find them. I think that's kind of if we were to give a summary of whatever that BS was, that's pretty much it.
It's kind of like, you know, I feel like they're like, don't misgender these ISIS people. Don't assume that every terrorist is a bad person. Some of them are here to do good things. I mean, I felt like that was the dumbest answer I've ever seen. But if they are here to do bad things, then we will have an orderly process to make sure that they give back the government-issued cell phone, hotel room, and gift cards that they were offered when they came into the country illegally. Trust me, we don't want the wrong kind of ISIS people here, only good ISIS.
Yeah, we give them the benefit of the doubt. Until they blow up something, we're going to assume they are good people. But, you know, he did all of that. He's not supposed to be an activist, by the way. So the fact that he's going down there doing Joe's bidding ahead of the debate, you're supposed to be protecting our country, not protecting Joe Biden. But that's exactly what this little trip was. And him trying to discredit the fact that there are hundreds. I mean, there's probably thousands, maybe even millions. But tonight, I don't know how much they're going to get into the border, but I think that that's going to give Joe an out, whether it's BS or not. That's going to give him some kind of an out. But also, he's just going to go back to, we had a bipartisan border deal and Trump said not to sign it. How does Trump address that? Because we know that's going to be the talking point.
I think it's plain and simple. It was a bad deal. It let more people in this country illegally. It gave them a path to citizenship through newfounded asylum officers. I mean, Trump, the one thing he has to do on that bill because I've become a big believer that the left and the media just want bumper stickers, right? Convicted felon, reproductive rights. They want to be able to say all these things. And so it was a bipartisan border bill. The reality is it wasn't bipartisan. It wasn't a border bill. It was an immigration amnesty bill. And Trump needs to explain that to people. Because for a lot of people, they turn on the news and they just hear the bumper sticker. It was a bipartisan bill that Trump was against. Okay, then explain why it was bad and explain the fact that it created this cadre of immigration officers that sort of was able to give people amnesty to allow them to become citizens and vote. That's the reality here. And I don't think it did anything to make our country safer. And that's what Trump needs to stay on, because if he just does name calling, the people don't know why it was bad. He needs to explain how bad that bill was.
He's also going to be asked about, I assume Trump is going to be asked about his comments about the largest deportation effort and would you round up women and children and send them back to their country of origin. And I don't know, for me, the polling that's come out on this issue, that a majority of Americans and a majority of Hispanic Americans agree with mass deportation. I think Donald Trump looks square at the camera and says, you betcha, get ready. And it's going to piss some people off. And it's going to be, oh my God, the mothers and children, all this stuff. And I would say, you know what? Why are those mothers and children more important than the American mothers and children who are being raped and murdered by illegal aliens? There's a Maryland mother of 5 who was just killed. There was a 12-year-old just killed in Houston. But those mothers and children are supposed to mean less than the illegal aliens who didn't respect our system. But do you think that he is going to definitively answer that way? Or do you think that he's going to try to cushion it? I don't think he cushions anything, but maybe.
On the topic of immigration, he's going to crush this thing. There will be no equivocation. He will come out strong. This is where his gut is to begin with. And you're right, the polling backs him up on this. So that is one area I don't expect him to hold back at all. He's going to come out and talk about being a nation of laws. I think he could easily use the phrase that you just used. You bet, we're going to do it. Get ready. Because most people support this. How do you explain to the people who did this legally that all you had to do was really just come through a hole in our southern border? It undermines our system of laws. It sends the wrong signal in so many ways. I don't think this is a tough sell. And that's why the polling is what it is. It's just for the liberals and the far left and the media that care about this. But keep in mind, this is the other thing that Trump has to explain to them, that the reason Biden is doing all this is that that's what he ultimately wants. He wants new voters. That's what they are doing. They are letting people in. They are creating paths to citizenship. And then that's what happens. Guess what? Then you get to vote. There is something that's important for the left to understand, though, Tommy, and this is where I think that it's hysterical. They talk about, I bring this up all the time. If you come into this country illegally, then what do? In most states, we give you a driver's license. What do you need to vote? A driver's license. Mm-hmm. But the left will say, there's no way. It's illegal to vote if you're not a citizen. So my answer back is, so let me get this straight. You broke the law to come into our country, but the line that you won't cross is breaking another law after the same folks who tell you not to break that law are telling you that if you don't vote, the other party is going to deport you. I would probably vote under those circumstances. I mean, the Dems are telling them, go out and vote because everything's on the line. The other party will deport you. Here's a driver's license to do it, but wink, nod, don't do it.
Yeah. Exactly. I've been talking about this for years, living in California, knowing that if you go to the DMV to get your driver's license as an illegal, you're automatically put on the voter rolls. That goes for anybody who visits a DMV in California and now other states, that they're automatically put on the voter rolls. And they have to, many of them who don't speak English or don't understand any of the process, they have to opt out. It's upon them to opt out. You're telling me these people are going to just cognitively be there like, oh, I got to opt out. I guess I can't vote. I came into, like, as you mentioned, I came into the country illegally and they're giving me all these perks and privileges, but make sure I don't check this box because that one is just a bridge too far. You're exactly right. I've been trying to say this for years and people just like, it just goes over their head. And I think that's exactly why Trump needs to say because you know the moderators are going to jump in and go, oh, he doesn't want people to vote. It's illegal for non-citizens to vote. And then I would just say, okay, well, we need to ask Joe if he believes that illegal immigrants should vote and put it on him to answer the question.
It's funny, though, by the way, when it comes to guns, they have the opposite. They want more laws. And yet here we have a situation where they're saying, oh, don't worry, there's already a law in the books. You can't vote illegally. We don't need more rules and regulations. And when it comes to our Second Amendment rights, their answer is, but we need more laws. It's just they will say anything to advance their interests. It's a fascinating dynamic that occurs on the left. They will say whatever they need, and it's always in support of advancing power to them. What will get them in power and keep them in power?
And they really don't care how they get there. Last thing I want to ask you about is the results of whatever happens tonight. I don't think it matters as much for Trump, but I think for Joe, you know, not only does he have to perform and defend his policy, but he has to defend his cognitive ability. So if there's a moment tonight where Joe has a big gaffe or a brain fart or a senior moment or a hello America, do you think that that is the end for him as it relates to the Democrat nomination?
No.
You
So
don't
here's
think
what I'll
so?
tell you. Here are my thoughts on tonight. One, I don't expect it to move the needle much. This is most people know who they're voting for on both sides. So even if Joe Biden fell down and did a bunch of crazy stuff, his base is still with him. That's the big thing. He has more to lose, don't get me wrong, than Trump. Trump comes out and is Trump and says crazy stuff. Everyone's going to be like, oh, that's just Trump. If Biden comes out and has a gaffe or does something silly, which by the way, just for the record, I don't think is going to happen. You can't stay locked up in Camp David for 7 days, that rested, and come out and not be spry.
Do you think that 7 days reverses dementia, though? Because there's
I'm
some
just
forces
saying
of nature. There are some forces of nature that there's not enough Adderall, IV drips, Red Bull, whatever it may be, in the world to, if somebody is truly failing from dementia, Alzheimer's, just cognitive failure, aging, whatever it may be. I don't even know if the 7 days can save you.
No, but CNN can, and they will do everything they can to hand him softballs, push things Trump way, take him, put him on, put a good environment for Biden. So I think I'm just setting the table. I think Biden's going to have a fine night tonight. I think everything has been pushed for him. This is an away game for Trump. Okay. That being said, to the heart of your question. Remember this, Biden is being virtually nominated because his campaign was too stupid to figure out the Ohio ballot. Okay, so the convention for the Dems is in August, but because the dum-dums didn't know when they actually had to make the ballot in Ohio and assumed that Ohio would bail them out, they missed the we're going to do is nominate him early virtually. Why does that matter? This goes to the heart of your question. That once he locks in legally as the nominee, that's it. Game, set, match. He is the nominee. He's riding that train in November.
Even if something horrible happens to him?
Look, John Ashcroft, former senator from Missouri, died. His opponent died, and he still lost to him. If he's on the ballot, then Kamala would become the nominee after the election. But Joe Biden would remain the nominee. You'd be voting for a dead person on the Dem side. You'd effectively be voting for Kamala. But he's on the ballot. Ballots get issued in August and September for overseas and military voters and for a lot of states who start early voting. That's it. Game, set, match. That's why I'm telling people who want to float, the Michelle Obama theory, whatever else. It's not going to happen. Now, something could possibly happen to either candidate, of course, but the reality is he will be on the ballot.
So after the convention.
Well, after he's virtually nominated.
Yes.
And remember, they've moved that up, as I said, so that they make the Ohio ballot. The conventions actually do a legal thing, which is make you the nominee of your official party. And that entitles you to a bunch of funding and a bunch of other things that happen. Ballot access. There's a legal mechanism that matters there. I actually took a bunch of pictures after the 26th convention where Trump and Pence were backstage signing things saying, okay, I am the official party nominee of the Republicans, and that entitles me to ballot access. The option, obviously, both is skewed it to federal financing, et cetera, et cetera. You have to abide by certain limits that you can take in terms of primary and general money. But there's a lot of legal pieces of this that come into play once you become the official nominee. And so once that happens, you can't just undo it.
You can't undo it. You and I have talked about this in depth before. So what if it comes to the convention? I know you mentioned the virtual nomination and all that, but these super delegates, the party decides, we're not going with Joe. There's a mutiny.
So what could happen is after the convention, and I don't mean the convention, I mean the actual bestowing of the nomination that occurs, the roll call vote of the states. Once he becomes the nominee, if something were to happen to him like death, then the DNC is empowered by their rules to put forward a new nominee. Whether he makes the ballot or not, my guess is that in most states, Biden himself would be on the ballot. The DNC in some states could tell you who you'd actually be voting for, but that's different. The superdelegates, once the convention is over, the delegates are done. They exist in both parties for the entirety of the convention to vote on the rules and the nominee. That's it. The second that convention goes sine die, it doesn't reconvene for 4 years, and everything stands still between that. The DNC, by their rules, is empowered, if there is a death within the ticket, to meet within themselves, which is obviously a subset of the Democratic Party, right? It's not the delegates, it's not the superdelegates. Those folks can meet and replace the nominee, but only so much as they're not printed on a ballot yet.
Well, there's a lot of, they've printed a whole lot of ballots leading up to 2020. A lot of them that got sent out, that never happened before. So
Right.
I'm still believing that something unprecedented is going to happen. I'm holding on to that. Whether it happens before, after, during, I don't know. But
there's things that can happen. See, this is where both can be right. So things can happen, and then how does it play out are two different things, right? So something could happen, and they could argue that, well, we'll do the following, or we'll try to do this. But there's going to be a bunch of interesting scenarios that are possible. But this is why understanding the rules of the parties, respectively, matters, because there's only so much each can do.
Yeah. Well, in my young 31 years, I've seen enough of the Democrat Party to know that if they want something to happen, they will make it happen. And I referenced 2020 and COVID because a lot of unprecedented things happened in that election that we never thought were possible. So the fact that they couldn't figure something out, I hope that that's the case, but I don't buy it. I believe that Democrats do what they want to do. They bend, they break the rules, they make the rules. They don't care. I think that they do what they need to do. And you got 2020 mass mail-in voting, and then you got 10 million illegals in our country. So, I mean, they do what they want.
That's good. I think you make a very compelling argument.
Well, I appreciate that. And I appreciate you for giving us all the knowledge of this, because you're the one that I lean on for this, that long discussion that we had many, many months ago. But I'm still clinging to my prediction. And I will cling on to it until...
Gavin Newsom, baby. I know.
Yeah. Well, he's going to be there tonight in the spin room. Imagine that, cleaning up the crumbs like he always does, like a little dustbuster. So we'll see what he does tonight, getting himself all ready to go, hoping that Joe has a senior moment. But no one will say that. I will. Sean, I appreciate you, as always, for giving me all the tea, all the insider information, dropping that bombshell about Jake Tapper and Hooters, which none of us knew. And I hope to see you after the debate, and even more so after that convention, when I think something crazy is going to happen.
Okay. Looking forward to it. Thanks, Tommy.
Thanks, Sean. All right, that does it for this episode of Tomi Lahren is Fearless. I will be right back here live tomorrow at 1 p.m. Eastern with all the post-debate coverage your little heart desires. But until then, from Nashville, God bless and take care. What's up, guys? Thank you for watching Tomi Lahren is Fearless. If you want more of my hottest takes, must-see conversations, and of course, my final thoughts, click here and make sure you subscribe here so you'll never miss a beat. I'll be here every weekday, and I hope you'll join me.